Pokemon! It's
X-cutioner. Does anyone else think X-cutioner's design look like a Pokemon? I mean, it's clearly a fighting type. It could also be a flying type too. Like, why does he look like a bird? Anyway, this is the X-Men figure I was looking forward to the least. Because I'm not familiar with X-cutioner, and the overall figure just looks bland. Let's deconstruct this figure. There's an FAQ on the paint and brushes I used in the description box below. Okay, the X-cutioner was actually pretty awesome in the X-Men 97. He looks like a threat and was able to go against the X-Men. That said, this figure is still the weakest of the wave. All the other X-Men figures are pretty show accurate, minus the cell shading. But the X-cutioner just doesn't look right, and I can't really pinpoint what it is exactly. Actually, I think I know why. The orange and the red colors are too bold and distracting. They're pulling the attention away from the face. Even the weapons have these bold colors. As a result, I just look at everything else but the character. The gun came with this removable cap. I wonder if it's there to prevent it from bending. Oh, never mind. It's actually part of the design. What surprises me most is that the outfit may look restrictive, but he can actually pose relatively well, especially the head. I've been giving every X-Men figure the cell shading treatment. Today, the X-cutioner will get his. I don't know how this is gonna go. It may not work, but we shall find out. So, hello, this is Ken. I like making things. Whether it's repainting my figures or making diorama displays, I love making things look awesome. My goal is to elevate my figures so they can shine on my display. Join my DIY venture as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? I'm gonna start by sanding the figure lightly. The plastic they used feels quite slippery. This should help make the paint adhere better. To Hasbro's credit, I don't see any obvious missing details, and there are like 5 to 6 different colors on this figure. That means I have to figure out the optimal order to paint in. For the X-cutioner, I'm gonna start with the brown on his boots. The reason is because this is the only way I can reach his legs. If I do the green first, there's a high chance of me ruining the paint by excessively stretching and handling the plastic, or accidentally getting the brown paint on it. And if you're wondering why I don't take the figures apart before I paint, it's because I find it more challenging reassembling the figure. The joints are often very tight and require quite a bit of force. I feel like there's a much higher chance of me scratching up the paint that way. Okay, next. I'm gonna line the panels on his arms with a Gundam pen. Unfortunately, some of my Micron pens are no longer working. They have either dried up or they got clogged up by the paint. I don't want my Gundam pen to have the same fate, so I'm gonna use it mostly on unpainted surfaces. These grooves are deep enough where if I paint lightly over them, the line should still be visible. Alright, that's looking better already. Time to mix itself a grey, so I can cover up the really nice silver they used on the X-cutioner. Because the goal is to make the figure look cel-shaded, I have to get rid of all the metallic or glossy finishes. The finish needs to be as flat as possible to achieve that 2D cartoonish look. Okay, the grey I mixed has this slight blue tone to it. It's a touch too cold to me, so let me mix a light grey that's a bit warmer. And this is going to be the highlight color. Looking at the reference images, I can see that they have this diagonal highlight across this belt buckle. This is quite tricky to paint because of how bumpy the buckle is. It's hard to get the line to look straight. Onto the face. There are these vertical stripes going down one side of his face shield, and then the other half is just the highlight color. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing with the shoes. Even though I've done a handful of X-Men now, there's still so much I don't understand about cell shading. Part of me feels like the shapes have to be precise and specific. But the other part of me thinks that maybe the shapes don't matter that much as long as the imaginary light source is consistent. Is this working? I have no idea. It's hard to tell right now because the majority of the figure is still not cell shaded. So I ended up redoing the lines on his arms. I wanted the lines to be bolder, so I painted them on with the brush instead. Okay, I am done with the gray. Let me do the red next. Gotta get rid of that plastic shine. As for the shading color, I'm gonna darken it by mixing a bit of brown into the red, and apply it over the folds. Next, the orange. I don't like how bold the orange belt is on the figure. It would look better if the color is a bit less vibrant. I wanted to lean a little closer to brown than orange. I'm going to use the brown as a shading color to emphasize the shapes of the pouches and the shoulder strap. The color is a bit too similar. Let me use a darker brown on his shoulder pad and gauntlets. That's better. Now let me add some highlights with the lighter brown again. Oh, and before I forget, let me paint those buttons gray. Alright, onto the green. The green on the figure is quite dull. Let me make it a bit more vibrant. Nope, that is not the right color. That green is too vibrant. And that is not the right shade of green for the X-cutioner. This green is a bit closer, but it's too light, so let me darken it with a bit of brown. Ah, okay, this green looks much better. There's something about this green that just harmonizes really well with the orange and red. It is looking very good. The only thing left is the black. Gotta mattify it as well. And add a bit of these fold lines on the black fabric. And this is when I noticed I completely forgot to paint the grays on his knees and legs. Okay, the figure is pretty much done. Time to seal the paint. But before I use the matte spray, I'm gonna add a bit of matte varnish over his legs. I am a bit worried about his legs rubbing against the coat. This should add a bit of barrier between the paint and the coat. I'm also gonna add a bit of matte varnish over his right arm as well, to protect the paint on the arm against the blaster. On to the weapons. The rifle is missing quite a bit of details. The colors also look a little cheap. Let me start with the dark brown. This brown has more of a wooden feel to it, and according to the reference images, the little panels and the areas between the body and the barrel are black. I'm going to try and match the same light gray I used on the body and paint over the silver bits. Almost there. There are quite a few missing yellow details on the rifle. Let me paint the barrel first, and then I'll add the missing details back in. And finish it off with a bit of pink on the tip of the barrel and the buttons. Onto the other blaster. This is such a weird design. It looks like it's backwards. Overall, the colors are pretty accurate to the show. I just need to mattify it so it doesn't look plastic. I actually did a pretty good job matching the colors. The only thing I want to add is a bit of glow to the yellow parts, so it looks like it's charging up. So I'm just gonna line the panels with an orange. There we go. Much better. Onto the sticks. What do you call these? Is it a lance? A pole? Anyway, I'm not gonna have the X-cutioner hold these after they're painted. There's no way I can get him to hold them without damaging the paint, even if I add protection layers over them. But it's okay, he's still got 2 other weapons. Speaking of, let me do a coat of matte spray over them and I'll do some panel lining with a Gundam pen after. Alright, the weapons are done. They all look so much cooler cel shaded, especially the rifle. The blaster turned out really good too. Let's put everything together and have a look. Here's the X-cutioner all finished. This is a night and day difference. You can actually see the character as a whole, and not get distracted by the bright red and orange parts. In a weird way, the cel-shaded version actually has more dimension than the original one. The tones are just much more balanced. I don't know how to explain it. The colors just look right. Not gonna lie, I almost gave up multiple times. It was hard to tell whether or not I was using the right colors. And not just that, it was quite challenging to reach the arms and legs that are hidden underneath the garment. But I didn't give up. I wanted to finish this because there's still quite a few X-Men to do. My goal is to make all the X-Men cel-shaded. I started with some of my favorite X-Men, like Wolverine, Storm, and Magneto. But I don't want to do all the popular or cool ones right away, because then I'll lose motivation and not touch the ones I don't like as much. Besides, I learned a little bit more about cel shading every time I paint a figure. For a character that I don't love, I'm actually really glad I painted him. This figure has leveled up and I actually quite like it now. The X-cutioner is actually pretty fun to pose, despite the outfit being quite restrictive. They should have released this figure with this color palette. Alright, let's take some photos. At first, I really didn't like the red garment on his shoulder. It was in my way. But the wind swipes look really adds to his character. It's giving this mysterious samurai ninja vibe to the X-cutioner. The blaster may look a little silly, but the colors actually complement each other really well. It's like the perfect pop of colors. Give this video a like if you like what I've done. Would I ever paint the X-cutioner again? Probably not. The process was a bit too tedious. But now that I've done the X-cutioner, the rest of the wave should be much more enjoyable. So subscribe to my channel if you want to see the rest of the X-Men cel shaded. And as always, stay inspired and I'll see you next week. I can make it, so can you.